Hold up, let me ask you something that may sting just a little. Are you ever the smartest or most experienced person in the room who somehow feels like the most insecure? You've got the credentials, the expertise, and the degrees hanging on your wall, but when it comes time to speak up in that meeting or share your great idea or push back on something you know is wrong, you second guess yourself and you shrink. Then you watch someone else with half your qualifications confidently present your idea 2 weeks later, and they get praised for it. I'm going to share with you the exact transformation that I've witnessed in hundreds of smart, analytical, overthinking professionals who finally learned to stand confidently in their ideas and opinions. Because here's what I know to be true. You are not broken and you're not lacking anything. You're an asset, the most important asset to your career. But somewhere along the way, you started believing that your intelligence wasn't enough, that you needed to dim your light in order to make others shine. But what if I told you that everything changes when you master one fundamental skill? It's not networking, or technical expertise, or even emotional intelligence. It's the skill of standing in your own confidence and owning it. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why social situations feel so draining, what's been making networking and team interactions so exhausting, and the specific framework that helps analytical minds build genuine social confidence without changing who you are. And I'm going to give you 3 immediate strategies that you can use this week to start speaking up, connecting more naturally, and finally feeling comfortable in your own skin around your colleagues, clients, and everyone you work with. Now, if you've ever felt socially drained after a networking event, if you avoid speaking up because you're afraid of being judged, and if you overthink every conversation and wish you could just relax and be yourself around your colleagues, then what I'm about to share will transform how you show up in rooms where people are watching. Here's what nobody tells you when you're competent and accomplished. Social situations become harder, not easier, as you climb the ladder, because now there's more at stake, right? More people watching, more opportunities to say the wrong thing, and more chances for your words to be misinterpreted or judged. So your analytical mind does what it does best. It starts preparing for every possible social scenario. What if they ask me about X? What if it sounded stupid? What if they think I don't belong here? You know exactly what I'm talking about. You rehearse conversations in your head. You avoid events because they feel exhausting. And you sit in meetings knowing you should speak up, but your throat just feels tight and your mind goes blank. And here's the exhausting part. After every interaction, you replay it in your mind. Did I talk too much? Did I talk not enough? Did they think my comment was weird? Should I have said something different? It's like having a social performance review after every conversation. Let me tell you about a moment that showed me exactly how much this pattern was costing me, because I need you to understand why this matters so much more than just being better at small talk. Picture this: Fenway Park, maybe 300 or 400 business professionals filling those famous seats. And I'm supposed to be the keynote speaker. Now, on paper, I belong there. I built an award-winning company and my bio looked impressive. But as those seats filled up, my chest got tight. My thoughts started racing. Each new face represented another person who might judge me, who might see through me, who might discover that I was just shy, reserved, and someone who had always struggled with social situations. Now, by the time the MC was welcoming the crowd, I wasn't thinking about my content or my message. I was thinking about escaping, about avoiding the social exposure and the judgment and the possibility of failing in front of all those people. I was backing toward the exit, hoping no one would notice the keynote speaker running away from the very thing that I had worked so hard to achieve. And then I heard the MC reading my bio, all my accomplishments, all the reasons these people had come to hear me. And then I turned to run. Susan, where are you going? I froze. It was the head of the organization, the person who had chosen me, over numerous other speakers to keynote this event. Right there on that staircase, she looked me dead in the eye and gave me a 15-second lecture that still, to this day, brings tears to my eyes. She said, "Susan Callender, if you can't go out there and share your knowledge and expertise with all of these business people who came to hear you have no business being in business." In that moment, something shifted. Not because I suddenly felt confident, I didn't, but because I realized something that changed everything. Those people weren't there to judge my confidence. They were there for my knowledge. My hesitation, my overthinking, my need to feel ready, none of that was protecting anyone. I was robbing them of solutions that they needed. I walked back up those stairs. I took that stage. And you know what happened? I delivered value. Real, practical, transformational value. Not because I felt confident, but because I chose to trust what I knew instead of how I felt. And that's when I discovered the truth that changes everything for analytical minds like ours. Confidence isn't a feeling you wait for. It's an identity that you choose to step into. You see, most confidence advice tells you to just believe in yourself. But that doesn't work for people like us because we're too smart to lie to ourselves. What works is understanding that confidence is not about feeling certain. It's about trusting your process even when you feel uncertain. And after that Fenway moment, I became obsessed with understanding this transformation. I studied what separates analytical minds who stay stuck from those who step into leadership and entrepreneurship. I've worked with hundreds of brilliant professionals who are trapped in that same cycle that I had been in. And I discovered that there were 3 specific identity shifts that change everything. I call this the professional identity shift, and it's built on 3 core realizations. Most analytical professionals are waiting for permission to share their expertise, permission from the room and from their boss and from some external validation that they're ready. But here's what I learned on that staircase. You don't need permission to use your brain. Your insights aren't random thoughts. They're the product of years of experience, education, and pattern recognition. When you have a gut feeling about something, that's not uncertainty talking. That's expertise. Stop asking if your ideas matter. They do. Stop prefacing insights with, "I could be wrong," but you're not wrong. You're thinking 3 steps ahead of everyone else. Here's that uncomfortable truth. You've been lowering your standards to avoid conflict and accepting mediocre ideas in meetings because you don't want to seem difficult. And you're tolerating interruptions because you don't want to appear arrogant. But every time you stay quiet when you should speak up, every time you let a bad decision slide because it's not worth the fight, you're not keeping the peace. You're abandoning your post. Your job isn't to make everyone comfortable with average. Your job is to elevate the conversation. This is where everything changes. Instead of showing up to meetings wondering what they'll want to talk about, you show up with your agenda, your insights, and your questions. You don't wait to be invited to contribute. Your expertise is the invitation. And when you make these shifts, when you trust your knowledge and set appropriate standards and lead conversations instead of reacting to them, everything transforms. Not because you suddenly become a different person, but because you finally start being the person you already are. Let me tell you what happens when you make this social identity shift. First, you stop second-guessing yourself. That exhausting internal dialogue that used to run on repeat, it quiets down because you're finally trusting your process instead of questioning it. You make decisions faster and with more clarity because you're not waiting for 100% certainty. You understand that your 70% is better than most people's 100%. And you no longer tolerate staying silent or making excuses for not speaking up. You set standards that match your vision instead of lowering them to avoid conflict. And you lead conversations instead of just reacting to whatever agenda someone else brought. You become the example your team looks to, not the exception they work around. People start seeking you out because they respect your contributions and your values. You release the need for constant validation because you know your worth, and you carry yourself with genuine professional gravitas, calm, assured, and grounded. Not because you're performing confidence, but because you're finally aligned with who you actually are. So you reclaim all that energy you were wasting on doubt and over-explaining. You earn respect without chasing it, and you lead in your role instead of letting the role lead you around by the nose. You're going to stop constantly managing your own insecurities, and here's my favorite transformation. You create a culture of excellence because you model it first. When you show up trusting your expertise, you give others permission to trust theirs too. You finally see yourself as the confident, connected person you want to be. All right, you want to start this social identity shift today? Here's exactly what to do. Start with the expertise inventory. Just write down 3 insights you've been holding back because you weren't 100% certain. Just 3. Look at them, and these aren't random thoughts. These are your expertise.
Then implement the 70% rule. Starting tomorrow, when you're 70% confident in an insight, share it. Not as a question, as a contribution. Based on my analysis, my experience suggests, I recommend. When you're feeling good about that, it's time for the meeting reset. For every important meeting, decide on one agenda item that you're bringing, not just participating in their conversation, contributing your conversation about their challenges. Listen, that moment on the Fenway stairs taught me something I'll never forget. You're not in business to hide your light. You're in business to use it. If you're brilliant, skilled, and accomplished, but you're struggling with team dynamics, feeling frustrated with your leadership impact, or even wondering if it's worth staying in your current role, the problem isn't your competence, it's your social identity. Because wherever you go next, your current way of showing up will follow you. You can't outrun self-doubt with a new job title. You have to consciously transform it. The professionals I work with in my programs, they don't become different people. They become who they already were, but without the fear holding them back. If this resonated with you, if you saw yourself in my Fenway Park story, I want to hear from you. Comment below and tell me, what's one insight you've been holding back because you weren't 100% certain? Share it right here. Practice trusting your expertise. And if you're ready to make the social identity shift and finally show up as the leader you already are, subscribe and hit the notification bell. I share strategies just like this every week to help analytical minds step into their full professional power. Remember, you have no business being in business if you're not going to share what you know. It's time to walk back up those stairs.